thing, a whole bunch of it. Here's the whole packet.
Dale stuff.
Okay.
And one got that.
Now we're out of it. There's more over there too. Is somebody on? Yeah, there's that little 2-page thing is not all of it. The little 2-page thing is not all of it. This is the whole thing. So you almost need to redo it. I only have one.
I'll give it back to you in a minute.
Sure.
Okay, we'll call it to order the planning and zoning meeting for Stark County, March 31st, 2022. First of all, we had board members are all here present except for Sue Larson and Sandy Kuntz. Are you on the phone, either one of you? Either one, Sandy Kuntz or Sue Larson, are you on the phone? If not, then they're not present, then all other members are present then. First on the agenda is the minutes from February 24th. Is there any changes or corrections to that? I think there was only one correction. There was a misspelling on the name. That one of them testified was should be Tess Eli instead of, I think it said Tess Lee, I believe, on there. Any other changes or corrections?
Mr. Chairman, I'd approve the minutes from February 24th, 2022.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for ZTA 01-22, a proposed amendments to Article 2, Rules and Definitions, and Articles 5, Zoning District Regulations of the Stark County Zoning Ordinance adopted October 2nd, 2012 regarding banquet halls and reception halls. Mr. Josephson, comment on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Steve Josephson, County Planner. If you recall from the last meeting, we had a couple, there we go. We had a couple here who own a barn on their property who wanted to turn it into a reception hall. And that was currently not, they're zoned agriculture, and it's currently not listed as an allowable use. So they came and spoke, and following the Planning and Zoning Commission's direction, I'm proposing amendments to both the agricultural zoning district and the commercial zoning district to allow for that. Doing some research, looking at codes from other places, found a definition for banquet hall / reception hall that seems to fit the intent of what Mr. and Mrs. Johnson want to do, and made it a little broader too. So what you have before you is proposed amendment, first of all, to the definition section that includes the banquet hall / reception hall, and then amendments to both the agriculture zoning district and the commercial zoning district. So both of those would be conditional, would require conditional use permits. And that's it.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Josephson on this? If not, I'm going to open the public hearing then. Anybody from the public have any comment on these changes regarding banquet halls or reception halls? Anyone from the public have any comment on this change or? Anyone have any comment on this? Hearing no comment from the public on that, I'll close the public hearing then that. And Mr. Joseph, your recommendation on this to approve this change, correct?
Yes, yes, Commissioners. Commissioners, we recommend approval based on the findings in this staff report. And I'm here to answer any more questions you may have.
Okay, is there any questions for Mr. Joseph on this change? Ms. Kuntz, are you on the line now or?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Hearing no other discussion, any other questions, I'll look for a motion to approve this change into the regarding banquet halls and reception halls to our ordinances.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve as recommended by staff.
Okay, I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Do a roll call vote then. Commissioner Dressler,
Aye.
Commissioner Arthod,
Aye.
Commissioner Freilich,
Aye.
Commissioner Richard,
Aye.
Commissioner Walla,
Aye.
Commissioner Sobelik, and Commissioner Kunz,
Aye.
and chair votes aye, motion carried. Next on our agenda is a public hearing for ZTA 02-22, proposed amendments to Article 2, Rules and Definitions, and Article 3, General Provisions of the Stark County zoning ordinance adopted October 2nd, 2012 regarding the floodplain management. Mr. Joseph, do you have a comment on this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Steve Josephson, County Planner. This is a proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance that would add definitions related to floodplain management and also add a section into the code regarding floodplain management. And what got this going was that both the State Water Commission and FEMA have done a restudy of the floodplain maps here in Stark County, not just for the county, but also for all the local governments that are participating in this program. And by the way, Stark County has been a participant in this program since 1971. As part of the restudy, they also asked all the local governments to see their floodplain management ordinances to make sure that they matched up with the minimum state and federal requirements for this. Ours was found a little lacking, so this was based on a template that we got from the State Water Commission that was just listing all the minimum things that the county has agreed to in the past as part of the National Flood Insurance Program, but just putting it on the record. Just to let you know, I was reading over the minutes for the city of Belfield, and apparently they had a first reading to amend their zoning, their ordinance, their floodplain ordinance to come into compliance too.
Any questions for Mr. Joseph on this? If not, I'm going to open the public hearing then for the floodplain management. Anybody from the public have any comment on this? Anybody from the public have any comment on the floodplain management? I'll ask again, anybody have a comment on the floodplain management plan? If not, I'm gonna close the public hearing then and ask for a motion regarding this proposed amendments.
Chairman,
Yes,
question for Mr. Josephson. Will the maps be incorporated into the ordinance, or will they simply be on file with your office?
They will be, Commissioner Kuntz, they'll be on file in our office. However, if you read through the language in here, it does specifically reference those maps. And we're going to find a way to put them online, online for people too.
okay, any other questions? Now I'll look for a motion then on this proposed amendments. Okay, motion approved. Do I have a second?
I would second that.
Have a second? Roll call vote then. Commissioner Soboluk? Commissioner Freilich?
Aye.
Commissioner Richard?
Aye.
Commissioner Dressler?
Aye.
Commissioner Arthod?
Aye.
Commissioner Walla?
Aye.
Commissioner Kunz?
Aye.
The chair votes aye, motion carries. Both of these will move forward to our commission meeting on April 5th. Okay. Next, we recognize the item on our agenda is a public hearing for ZTA 03-20, proposed amendments to Article 2, Rules and Definitions, Article 6, additional provisions of the Stark County zoning ordinance adopted October 2nd, 2012 regarding wind energy facilities and wind turbines. Mr. Joseph, do you have a comment on this first, or?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, as you recall from the last meeting, there was a public hearing and discussion, and the direction to staff was to incorporate comments, recommendations that were made by the Planning and Zoning Commission and bring it back to the Planning and Zoning Commission at this meeting for review and possible action. The direction also was to send it on to Planning and Zoning Commissioner Dressler and to State's Attorney Engelstadt for review, which they have done. So we listened to the meeting several times to get the Planning and Zoning Commissioner's comments in there, and this should reflect the discussion that took place at the last Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
Okay.
We'll also add that we did receive some comments from State's Attorney Engelstadt did have some comments on this. We also did show this to someone from the Public Service Commission. They had some comments too, and those are also in your packet for your review.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on this before I open the public hearing? Questions? Okay.
And Mr. Chair, one other thing that I have up there as a presentation was at the last meeting when it came to the setback from habitable structures, it was changed from 3 miles to 2 miles. And I know that there was at least one commissioner who said, well, what would it look like if it was 1.5 miles? And there's a PowerPoint presentation that's behind this. That was the one that was originally proposed at 3 miles. This is the 2 miles that was proposed as an amendment at last month's meeting. And this was at 1.5 miles. So I just wanted to show that to you.
Okay. Any comment before I open the public hearing?
No, I guess the only comment I might have is, the registration with the North Dakota Secretary of State seems to keep coming up, and if no one has any objection to that, we certainly, I don't know why it keeps coming up with the professionals, but it does. So it's certainly something that I think we're all not super set on. So if that's a big issue, we certainly can let the state handle that, and we'll stay out of it, I guess. So just my comments, but it seems to keep popping up, and I don't think it's a sticking point for too many people. But so we certainly can scratch that if we need to.
Any other comments?
The 1.5 just looks like there would just give, it looked like there was a few holes in the area to where it wasn't in the 2, to where it would, the way it looked on the map.
And again, that's non-participating,
Yep,
so that, keep that in mind.
okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
question I have is when are we going to address some of these questions that have been pointed out to us through through Amanda and some of the other things before or after the public hearing?
I guess I'd leave that up to the committee, or I guess, however you want to do that, because there's some issues that probably should be addressed. I know the property line setback, the PSC, the personnel has mentioned about, talking about property line, well, every quarter section is the property line, so I mean, the wording there is gonna have to change, otherwise that's gonna be a big issue.
So do you think it needs to be by owner instead of, I mean, if you own two sections together and it's the same owner, I imagine they'd work with the same,
There's gonna be have to be some change in wording,
know,
because, like I said, any
no
property
matter what they
line.
do though, they would have to work with that property owner for all those quarters, whether it's 1 or 6. They still have to address each parcel as an owner, and they each have a property line. I don't think property line necessarily means by the quarter. It means by the owner's
It could be
property line.
interpreted that way though, in there, the way it's worded probably though.
You know which one, or what exact section
And
that,
that was,
I think that came,
then the setbacks,
that was the PSC?
yeah, setbacks, page 7 on the very top. Maybe it had something to do with neighboring property line or something, some similar wording to that effect, or,
I mean, because even if they're working with one property owner that owns 6 quarters, they're gonna have to get their approval for
Right.
each one of those pieces of land.
it's the wording of it's probably gonna be a legal issue though.
Well, how is it, should it be worded so it's not a legal issue?
That's a good question. But I mean, this way it almost, could be interpreted like he did from PSC, that it was every quarter section is a property line though.
And it probably is. I mean, like I said, if you're working with someone who owns 6 quarters, they don't necessarily have to sign up every quarter. They probably would go through each separate piece of property. I mean, how else do you divide it really besides, I mean, because if, as a property owner, I can say, well, I'll let you use these 2 quarters, but not these 2. You don't necessarily just want to say by owner either, because even each owner doesn't necessarily want to sign up every single piece of property that they own, even if it is in a group, you know what I
Yep.
mean? So I know these things are probably tedious for everyone involved, but I think they have to go quarter by quarter.
I mean, to me, a property line is a property line no matter who owns it.
Right. Even if it's the same owner, they still would want to give permission to utilize it. I don't know. I guess I don't understand how we could better define that.
Did we want to go through the things that our state's attorney had recommended, Amanda Engelstad recommended, or before the public hearing, or we gotta wait till after the public hearing?
I think we should go through them now, and then the public can comment on them.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Joseph, you want to take us, or Amanda, do you want, or do you want Mr. Joseph, you want to go through them, or?
Why don't we ask Ms. Engelstad?
Okay.
Sure, I didn't have a whole lot of, because you guys have the email in front of you. 6.19.2, talks about a fee.
You're gonna need a mic, Amanda, so.
Not talk too much. Okay. 6.19.2, wind energy facility or wind turbine siting permit. When we were talking about a fee, I just had suggested that the wording say something like a fee in the amount sent by the commission. Said fee shall be no lower than whatever amount you pick or no higher than whatever amount you pick, just so there are some parameters. So, you know, if one company comes in and you say $500, you know, and the other one you, I don't know, say $5,000 or something, we're not getting into some sort of, you know, arguments about discriminatory practices. So I think if you have some sort of a ceiling or a floor for the fee amount, that would probably be beneficial.
Amanda, just a clarification on that. That's per turbine,
Right.
not per project.
That's my understanding and how this is written, right?
And you're recommending that the commission set that, not this board?
Well, I
The
mean,
first page is the bottom.
some board needs to set it. I mean, the commission will have the ultimate say. I guess if you guys have, you guys have worked on this quite a bit, if you have an idea of what's appropriate to bring to the commission, that's not a problem. If you want to put it all in the commission's lap, I guess that's probably something you can do too, so.
Steve, what's, what's
Yeah, so right
traditional?
now, actually, we did adopt a fee, and right now, the fee for a wind energy facility is $1,000 for review.
I think this is different though, isn't it? Because this is talking about, include a fee to be determined by the commission for each proposed wind turbine.
I know in some counties do that. I know when the county adopted a fee schedule, they just adopted a flat $1,000.
And this was already in there, so this is original terminology, so I guess we should just.
You can strike it if,
So what, you're doing 1,000 right now,
right.
so do we want to leave that as a minimum and then let the commission choose if they so choose to do anything different? So,
Or the other thing that's, yeah, at least change it to, from what I understanding from State's Attorney Engelstad is, she's recommending just changing it from, instead of per turbine, to just a flat fee to be determined by the county commission. Is that correct?
Well, I guess not necessarily. You could certainly look at it that way, but I'm saying there should be, if you're gonna go with the per turbine, there should be a fee set.
For turbines. And I know some counties do have that. Or then they'll do a combination of both, where it'll be X amount plus a certain amount per turbine. You know, typically the purpose of these fees is for it helps to pay for the administrative review. You know, so it's whatever the planning and zoning commissions, whatever they want to do. As it is right now, the fee schedule we have just charges a flat fee. If we want to change the fee schedule so that it's a certain amount plus an amount per turbine, that's also something the county commission could do. You know, and certainly I could understand that because the more turbines they're proposing, the larger the wind energy facility is going to be, which is going to mean the more administrative time that's spent on reviewing it.
I'd propose $1,000 plus $100 per turbine. I'm guessing the costs have not gotten cheaper over the last 10 years since this is written.
Yeah.
So at least that much just for administrative reviews.
Okay.
And of course, we do have language in there that allows the commission, the reason we put that commission language in a lot of these is so that we wouldn't have to come back before a board to review if they chose to make adjustments.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is that acceptable, Amanda, do you think still?
Yeah, I just wanted there to be some sort of a set fee amount so that it,
The wording is no lower than that in there.
and you can set the fee, or you could do a no less amount than, no amount higher. I just think there should be some sort of set boundaries on it, yeah.
I think a set fee of 1,000. That way you're not going lower, you're not going higher. And it can always be amended down the road.
The next one was the applicant is registered with the North Dakota Secretary of State. The only reason I bring this up is if there's a farmer or rancher who wants to put one or two on their land. I don't know that they'd necessarily be registered with the Secretary of State. The scenario's probably unlikely, but it could happen, so just wanted to bring it up to everyone's attention again. If it's something that you want in there, that's fine. Those are just some of the thoughts that I had on it, so.
I tend to agree with you. I don't know, from a production ag standpoint, if they're gonna put up real large ones, I don't know if they would, but they may put up smaller ones, and to my understanding, we're not looking at those real small generators. And that's, in reading some of the comments from the PSC, that made me a little bit, the 50, I think they put in there some 50 megawatt wording, which gets a little bit confusing.
This is Sandra Kuntz. Do you simply want to reference that the applicant must be licensed to do business in the state of North Dakota? Because that would essentially cover, regardless of what industry the applicant is in.
That would work. Because no matter if they owned land and didn't live in North Dakota, they would still just have to register anyway to put it up, right?
Good question. I mean, that's what we're saying, yes. But otherwise, no, I don't think they would have to. As far as I know, but.
I don't know if it's verbiage that needs to be in there or not. I just guess
Yeah, I don't know either.
Just put it in, be done.
or if we want to just put it in.
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear Sandra. Was there something she was proposing in addition?
Sandy, Ms. Kuntz, was there something you were proposing to put in? Like even if the owner was living out of state but had land here and wanted to put one up, they would still register with the state?
I don't mind the language that they're registered with the North Dakota Secretary of State. I would put, or licensed to do business in the state.
Okay,
Okay,
Because if they're going to be, an ag operator and they're doing it under an LLC, et cetera, then there's going to be some registration in some fashion.
sounds good. I'll add that on my copy.
The next portion I have is 6.19.3. Shall review the permit application and shall. The way I read this public hearings, it states that the commission shall have a public hearing on the application no more than 45 days. I guess it's my opinion that it should say may, and I think that protects the county, because if the county wants to have its own experts come up or people come up and, something happens where they can't make it, then the county has the discretion to move it. When I read this is actually, the may would be protecting the county, because then it gives you some flexibility in case something would come up.
Yeah, I think that's how we originally had it, and then we were talked out of it, and I can't remember why. But we
I
changed
don't
it
know,
to
yeah,
shall.
so that was.
Okay, we'll change it back.
Yeah, there you go.
6.194, the demonstration of compliance. The only reason I bring this up is I'm wondering if we do that with other energy sectors. And if not, then we have to make sure that we have a reason that we're doing it with wind energy that is not gonna be unreasonable, arbitrary, or capricious, or you're gonna find yourself in legal trouble, so.
It's twice a year.
I don't think it's a problem, I just think that we need to make sure that there's there's
Yeah,
good
every other
reason
year.
behind it.
Every other year.
Chairman, was this put in because of the fact of the CUPs and wanting to have a biannual report, so we were caught up and everything was up to date? Is that why we put this in the first place?
I don't know why it was put in.
That was the reason why we
Yeah.
put it in there, so we could have a review process in place.
Yes.
I don't know if, unless you think it's a really big issue, I would like to see it stay in.
I don't think it's a really big issue. I just want to make sure that,
that one we could
there's a,
probably live with.
you know, a solid reasoning
And
behind
maybe
why it's in
we-
there.
You know, other CUPs in the oil industry, it's something that maybe we do review those as well. and
Yep,
change
I
that
agree.
language.
That's kind of where I'm going with that, yeah.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, that's a good idea.
And then on the setbacks, I think section A, the variance, it states, those affected parties on adjoining properties. This setback is, unique to the landowners that, as far as I'm reading it, that own the structure that's capable of habitation. So I don't think the variance is right, because you wouldn't be, checking with the non-participating landowners on that one, because this is, like I said, unique to the participating landowners. I think it should probably say something like all parties that have any legal ownership in the structure capable of habitation. Does that make sense what I'm?
No, you're right. Yeah, because the non-participating would.
Be
yeah.
the next one, yeah. So I think that language just needs to change to make sure that it's, jives with what setback we're talking about there.
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah.
Where you'd like me to insert that?
So on A, when it says, in the red, a variance may be granted if an authorized representative or agent of the permittee and those affected parties on adjoining properties. We wouldn't be talking about adjoining properties on this setback. We're talking about the, individuals who own the structures capable of habitation. So I think,
Strike that.
well, I think what you could put is that, the variance, you'd have to get, all parties that have any legal ownership in the structure capable of habitation. Like if you have 5 siblings of a farm, that they don't maybe live there, but they rent it out, you probably want to make sure all 5 of those individuals that have ownership in that are signing off on that, setback variance. If because this setback doesn't affect anyone except the owners of the structure. So that was the one thing I noticed. 6.19.7, maintenance and abandonment. I think you want to have a straightforward definition for operational condition. So it's clear what you guys are considering, the wind turbines to be, an operational condition of them. And then I thought it would be good to define when the 180 days starts. Like when a complaint comes into the county, does the county start an investigation? And then, you know, if you find that it is not in an operational condition, and you give notice then to the company, the wind turbine company, is there an appeal process for that where they can come in and present evidence and say, well, no, actually, it is still operational. That was, I think that I think that there could be, issues where there's certain people or like landowners that think, they haven't seen a moving, they make a complaint to the county. County goes to investigate. We do the investigation, county finds, yeah, they're not in operational condition. And then the company says, well, actually, I think they are in operational condition, and here's the reason why.
So they would bring that discussion up with the county commission then, would they?
I would guess so.
There's our appeal process.
Well, I'm guessing if you send them notice that, they are not in operational condition, do they have 10 days to respond, 10 days to ask for a hearing, 30 days, something that just gives them a time span that says, you know, we'll give you notice, and within this time, if you believe that the county is in error, you need to request a hearing on it within so many days or whatever it is. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, for the state's attorney. So in some ways, that sounds like if we get a complaint about a code violation, you know, and it comes to staff, we contact whoever it is by writing and say, we've had this complaint. Please respond within
You're right.
X number of days. I don't know that it needs to come back to the Planning and Zoning, you know, Commission for that. However, if they don't respond, if they don't resolve it, that's grounds to actually bring it back to Planning and Zoning to start the process of, I mean, there are other things administratively that can be done first, you know, such as if they don't respond to staff, then we send it on to your office, you know, but if they're just, you know, not responding whatsoever, we can work out some length, because I see what you're saying. You're saying give them a chance because we receive calls about code violations and then we go out there and see that there's either nothing wrong or we can't, you know, there isn't evidence that it's happening. So I see what you're saying. You want to give the applicant or the developer a chance to respond to that.
Yeah, they should be put on notice that we have this finding, and then have the opportunity to respond, right? Yeah.
Okay, we can develop some language and send that on to you to look at.
And then,
Wouldn't the planning and zoning still would like to be made aware of that at their meeting, just so they know what's out there?
to me, I guess, Steve, how do you, what is the normal process beside, you know, when there's just,
You know, typically what I'll do is if we get a complaint, I know that I copy, and if we get a complaint about a code violation or a nuisance violation, there's a whole list of people I copy on that, including the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And we'll send out letters, and if they don't respond, then we forward it on to your office.
yeah,
But in a case like this, where this is a conditional use permit, you know, we put this language into all conditional use permits, which is along the lines of if they're not complying with the terms of the conditional use permit, then the county commission can start, you know, they can go ahead and revoke the conditional use permit, which would mean coming back through the process. But we haven't hit, I'll tell you this, in the time I've been here, I haven't seen a case of that happen, but that provision is out there.
Yeah, and I know as an attorney, you like to see it very black and white because that's the easiest way to do it. But in this case, I doubt this is a situation that would maybe ever occur. And so I don't know that.
those are famous last words.
Yeah. Well, I know, but it's, so this is our code.
Yeah.
And if they violate it, they start the process. I don't know how much more clear you could be. This is the code. You're gonna send a letter, you're gonna start the process that you guys already have established. I'm not sure what else we could say. And why should we say it about this one piece of code versus all the other pieces everywhere throughout this whole section? So I'm just thinking, like, what else could we say that would be more clear than this? And do we want to define a process on this but nothing else, you know, because it's like, you also can tie your own hands when
Yeah.
you do something like that, and then suddenly it's a little twisted and it's not the same as what you envisioned, and now suddenly you got to go back to planning and zoning to change code again. So I don't know, sometimes not being like super definitive is also not a bad thing when it comes to language like this, because it is a pretty clear code. And then if that's violated, and typically it's only violated through a complaint system, so how long might it even take by the time you even notice that this isn't operating? You know, so they might have a heck of a lot longer time than this, because it's not like there's a policing of wind turbines going on. So I don't know. I don't think it can be much more clear. What do you guys think? Like, I just don't know that we want to get into the weeds on it unless anyone else has some really definitive language that they think is going to make this super easy to understand. But if so, we can change it. But But I don't, do you have something, Amanda, that you specifically wanted to say exactly, or?
Well, so it says, any wind turbine non-operational condition for a period of 180 days shall be deemed abandoned and shall be removed, decommissioned, and reclaimed per section 6.19.18 within 60 days from the date a written notice is sent to the turbine owner by the county. So I guess my point is like within those 60 days, if they don't agree with the fact that it was not in operational condition, do they have the opportunity then to come, essentially ask the commission to reconsider?
Well, because at this point, if this actually happens, you're talking 250 days from the date that they stopped using it, right? Because it's 180 plus the 60. At that point, they should probably know whether they're using it or, I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't seem super likely that this would happen, but without them explaining why, or I don't know. Seems like a long time anyway, that they probably have either, and then what's the flip side of that? If no one notices and they skip the country and they're not using it and suddenly you wait too long, now maybe they're out, they close their business and they're gone. So I don't know, I think it's just sort of they're trying to.
I guess my more concern is the operational condition, making sure that we have that defined, because, so we know what we're considering operational condition. Because if the county makes a finding that the wind turbines are not in an operational condition, and the energy company says, yes, we are, I think they need to have the process to be able to come back to the commission and say, we don't think your finding that this was not in an operational condition is correct. That's my point.
I would
So we need
concur
to
with the
define
attorney here. Let's just give
operational.
it the 60 days. Probably a pretty good chance it would ever get to that. If it does, what's another 60 days?
Oh, I think that's not what she's saying. She's saying, or maybe that is what she's saying. Just
Yeah, it
give
is.
them
You want
another.
an appeal date on there after
You
so
want
many
just-
days, right?
Right, so once they get notice, then I think they should have, we should put something in there that says if the applicant or owner does not believe that the finding that they're not in operational condition is correct, they can give written notice to the county within so many days, asking for a public hearing or a hearing in front of the commission to reassess this operational condition. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so just add a response to it.
So go on to another 60 onto the 180?
No, so, okay, so they have, for a period of 180 days shall be deemed abandoned and shall be removed, decommissioned, and reclaimed per sections, okay, within 60 days from the date of a written notice is sent to the turbine owner from the county. So sometime within that written notice time that we give them, right, we find it, we write them, a notice that says you have 60 days to remove, decommission, and reclaim this because the county has found that these wind turbines are not in operational condition. If you disagree with this finding, you must in writing let the commission know that you would like to have a hearing on this matter for reconsideration, something along those
How
lines, so
about
they
this?
have the option.
The applicant is allowed 60 days from the date of the written notice to respond to the claim and make an appeal.
Well, I don't even think you need 60 days. I think something like 30 is probably fine. Because, if they've got 60 days to get it all taken care of, you don't want it coming in on the 60th day and then it getting pushed out more, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it. That sounds good to me if everyone's in favor of that.
And then the last one I had was 6.198, just,
Amanda,
oh, yeah,
hold it.
sorry.
Part of your question on your comments there, when does the 180 days start?
I guess that would probably be from when the county makes the finding that it's non-operational. So,
Do we need to define that?
probably, yeah, 180 days would start when the county makes the finding that the wind turbine is not in operational condition. Because I'm not sure how you would, you know,
That's a tough one. I don't know a clear answer to it. That might be the clearest.
because I think the county is gonna have to make that finding that it's not in an operational condition.
Okay, I'm just gonna
And
say.
I suppose if you could figure out a way to historically go back and show that, you know, well, we're on day 90 and it's been the exact same for the previous 90 days, maybe you could start it then,
I'm
but,
just gonna say 180 days as determined by the county, and that gives you guys freedom to say, okay, if you've got pictures or
Yeah.
proof or whatever, you guys can determine through an investigation what,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
okay. And then, I think the last one was just termination and abandonment, if you guys wanna make sure that you have them, I mean, I know it seems silly, but just have it defined on what you consider termination and abandonment, so that there's nobody arguing, we didn't actually abandon our, you know, wind turbines.
There was, Ms. Engelstad, there was another comment you had on here where you said define capable of habitation.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I thought I had already, addressed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I didn't, maybe I
Yeah,
skipped over.
you know,
but-
the interesting thing is I've seen that PSC case that everybody has talked about, and everywhere through there, they kept using the word dwelling. But, you know, we can come up with some sort of term of what capable of habitation is.
Didn't we go through this last time and decide?
That's where the capable of
Yep.
habitation came in from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was how that language kind of got, amended.
The question is what about it?
I think we amended the language,
right.
but I don't think we ever defined exactly what we were gonna consider capable of habitation, so. Which can mean
Well, we-
different things to many different people, believe me.
Because, oh, there was another attorney here who spoke about it, and
Yeah.
he said,
And there is that PSC, administrative,
wasn't necessary to define it, is what they ended up saying.
Mr. Joseph, would you have a terminology what habitation is? Because that's kind of your job criteria to determine.
I think we did have we did have a term for habitation previously.
You probably got some criteria to follow.
We can
on that.
find some.
And if we
We
just
can
let-
find some, and I know that at that last public hearing, you know, Attorney Bowie said, well, let's bring it down to this specifically, because I think what they were arguing was this was a structure that maybe somebody's not living here, you know, 365 days a year, but somebody could live in there, somebody could use it. And that's why his recommendation was to use that term capable of habitation.
And then we started talking about water or utilities or this or that, and there was a lot of arguments about, well, you don't necessarily need running water to be able to live there and all these different things. And so that's why we didn't define it, was because everyone's definition was different. And so it's like, do we want to get into the
yes.
building code on what we determined? What we did decide that day was to say, didn't we say $50,000?
The
Or
note that I,
$10,000?
the note that I wrote down from the last meeting, kind of the way we defined it, capable of habitation, habitable, full-time or seasonal.
Yep.
Okay.
But we also put a dollar amount on it, 25,000, that's what it
I
was.
think wasn't that on the,
That was for something
Am I getting
I
different.
think that was on
mixed up?
something else, yeah.
No,
That
it
was on the,
That's how we
Doppler
decided
radar.
to create it as a value, like here, let's say it can't be a shack, can't be a shed, it can't, so we
Yeah.
put a value on it. And I don't see that in here, but I know we talked about $25,000.
The 25,000 was
Back
on
in the
the
setback.
personal communication
Oh,
devices, that
okay,
portion.
totally.
But I
is
have
that-
wrote down
Or, hey, maybe
capable
we
to
should
be
use that
used.
for this too.
Thought we put
Miss
that in.
Walla has,
Okay.
Miss Walla wrote down, it said where it's capable to be used.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Does it get any more clear than that? Let's ask the public when they're ready, what they think too.
and that was the end of my comments.
Joseph,
a
did
few
you
things,
wanna-
clean things up.
Did you want to go over the ones that you got from PSC, if you want to address any of those?
Yes, I just wanted to check something here. We got some comments, and this is from Victor Shockett at the PSC, and let me just summarize them. The first thing he said, in terms of definitions, rather than identifying a wind turbine, it is defined generically as an electric energy conversion facility. Let's see, he also said about calling out wind turbines less than 50 feet in height would be regulated as a utility. Wasn't sure what that meant. It said, it sounds to me as though you want to further regulate them, but you may mean that such a turbine would be controlled by the local electric utility providing retail service. In North Dakota law, wind energy facilities greater than 50 megawatts require a siting permit, but anything smaller would fall outside the PSC's jurisdiction. That is not to say you should not worry about those. 50 megawatts is still a considerable sized wind farm. I do like the height limitation you have proposed as at the county level, but would suggest specifying if that height is to the top of the hub or the nacelle, or if you mean to the top of the blades at the apex of their revolution. We are seeing this height grow as wind tower technology changes. An application we have now for a wind farm in Logan and McIntosh counties has a height to the top of the blade tip at 550 feet, but the hub height is 325. He liked the non-participating versus participating landowner definitions. They use the same in their cases. Recommended a GIS map indicating the things you have already listed, and additionally listing the exclusion areas, avoidance areas, and policy criteria. In 619.5, item D specifies the lighting specifications in North Dakota Administrative Code 69.0611. Just wanted to note this only applies to wind farms over 50 megawatts in the administrative code, and that is administrative code rather than law. What that means is this commission may change those requirements. A better suggestion would be to reference the Century Code. That's a change we can make, and I think that was in there, which has the same requirements and then makes a reference to all wind energy facilities in the county. If you want light mitigation technology on wind turbines rather than just PSC jurisdictional ones. Items I or J references bonds for decommissioning. This may be duplicative for wind farms jurisdictional to PSC. That will not be an issue for the PSC. Just wanted to note that we have similar requirements for wind farms we permit. If we permit a wind farm and Stark County permits the same wind farm, they would in theory have two separate bonds for the same objective. And the thing I wanted to note for that was originally the PSC didn't require a bond until after 10 years of operation. And when the wind farm here was approved, it was from the time of operation, and that law has since been changed so that they require the decommissioning bond up front also. Item 2 in setbacks. This is an area I would suggest comparing to other wind farms currently in service and really thinking about what your county wants. A 2-mile setback from, I believe this has been covered, but I'll read through it. A 2-mile setback from a non-participating habitable structure would make finding a suitable location for a wind farm very difficult. The 1-mile setback from a property line would likely make any wind farm impossible. As you know, land is divided out into tracts of a quarter section and smaller in areas near cities. It would be all but impossible for there to be no property line within 1 mile of any location in the state. And I believe the P&Z started discussing that earlier. The setbacks from roads, you may want to specify 1.1 times the height of the blades at their apex. If you have a 350-foot tower to the top of the hub, plus another 175 feet to the tip of the blade at apex and set at 385 feet from the road, the blades would cross the entirety of that road if the tower were to collapse. In 619.8 in the PSC rules, we consider a wind facility or tower abandoned at the end of its life if it has not generated at least 10% of its nameplate capacity for 2 consecutive years. For shadow flicker, his comment is recommend identifying either the anticipated number of hours or the metrological maximum number of hours. They are 2 drastically different numbers, and both would be important. I didn't see anything about radio and TV reception. I think that we had something in there. This is an issue we have had some problems with recently, so it is worth considering. And then there's a link regarding a recent order of the PSC issued permitting a wind energy facility. And I did read through that. I read through about half or so of that decision. So I hope this helps give you some perspective on your proposed rules. I'm happy to provide additional feedback and guidance as needed. So I don't know, commissioners, if you want to go through those, now that I've read those, if you want to go through those point by point or, how you wish to address those. I think you've already addressed some of those in your discussion.
Chairman. Yes, Mr. Josephson, I think that pretty much all of this information, almost to a T, was addressed and all when we did our setbacks. On a lot of this stuff that,
And I believe our height was defined at the beginning to any time we refer to height, it's to the top of the blade.
yep,
Yes.
So I don't know that we need to keep saying that over and over, but we sure can. I mean, we can add it every single time we say height, we can say to the top of the blades.
And I think that always has been that.
Yeah, so I think we got that covered, I believe.
About the lighting issue on that, do we want to reference the Century Code, the 4922 16.4?
So it's just a matter of changing that.
and that has been changed on that Century Code with the lighting. That has been changed with different wind turbines, because that was supposed to be done. I know the PSC worked with some wind turbines, because that was all supposed to be done and complete at the end of 2021 on the lighting.
So basically, he's just saying we should reference Century Code instead of,
Instead of the administrative code.
Yep.
yeah, so that's
That's an easy fix.
fine, that's an easy fix.
Any other discussion? Is there any other questions or discussion before I open the public hearing? Not, if there's any questions, then we'll move forward. I'll open the public hearing. Then anybody have a comment on the ordinance on wind energy?
Christy Goodall.
Hi.
Hi. On page 7, if you go to number 2 setbacks, the one thing that I just noticed, I think this was taken out, or whether it's addressed now that maybe we're going upon the definition based upon the email that Mr. Josephson received. If you read, it says the following setbacks and separation requirements shall apply to all wind turbines in a wind energy facility. So it doesn't address if there's anything. Are we considering a wind energy facility to even be considered to be one turbine?
Okay, I'm sorry, which
If
one
that's a
is that?
possibility.
Which one
On
is that?
page
I'm sorry,
7,
what, which one is that under?
Sorry.
I'm looking at page 7.
Yeah,
correct, number 2 setbacks, just where it starts, the first definition of setbacks. It says, at the very top of page 7, just above
Okay.
A. It says the following setbacks and separation requirements shall apply to all wind turbines in a wind energy facility. So are we still defining a wind energy facility to be at least one turbine? So do we need to define that? What we consider a wind energy facility? Or is this going to be applicable as well to even just one turbine?
I'd say we just add language on.
Okay, that was my question.
Okay.
And I think that's something Commissioner Dressler had, I believe Commissioner Dressler, that was something you had searched through here and found one instance where,
Yeah.
so we'll just add that in. And we'll look for some more to make sure.
Any other comment for the public?
Dean Berwick. I got on page, also on page 7, where we got the structures capable of habitation, and you guys are questioning the 1.5 to 2 miles. We spent a ton of time on this, and we came up with a lot of compromise. We went to 3 miles, and now we backed it down to 2 miles. I don't think it can go any less than 2 miles because of the noise that the turbines put out and, of course, the infrasound. And I know a lot of people didn't do much study and checking out the infrasound, but it is a big deal. So I think we need to stay with the 2 miles. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other comment from the public? Any other comment from the public? Any other comment from the public?
Does anybody have a comment about defining habitation or any thoughts on that? Or do you think we need to go further?
Like when we had Dean Berwick again, when we had our attorney here last time, he was talking basically about the Kessler case, and it was a deal whether they used it or not all the time. If they even wanted to use it as a hunting cabin, it's a habitable structure. So I think as long as somebody could stay in there, it doesn't have to have running water, you can bring your water, but as long as it's a shelter, to me, it's a habitable structure. And I think that's the way he pointed it out, and
How
of course.
exactly would you define that?
What's that?
How exactly should we define that? I mean, should we say, I mean, all these things are common sense to us. I mean, should we put a dollar value on it? Should
Well,
we?
yeah, but
I mean,
you-
how do you determine who thinks something's habitable and not habitable? I mean, I don't really want to get into the weeds on this, but yet it seems like we keep bringing it up. So I'm just,
I think it'd be
throwing
hard
it
to
out
put
there.
a dollar figure on it. You could pull a trailer house in there that you got for $1,000, and it'd be plenty good to.
well,
to
that's a
live.
good point.
You
I
know,
mean,
so I mean-
do we want to prevent that from happening? I mean, once someone starts a project, it's probably not going to be, like, at what point can they put a structure there? And I guess this is also just for participating landowners, right? Because non-participating, this doesn't apply to. So as a participating landowner, you're gonna have a lot of say whether this project is put there or not.
Yeah, if you're
So maybe we're
participating.
arguing for absolutely no
Nothing.
reason because
Right.
it's only regarding folks that are already in the project. So I guess if you're in the project and you want to waive your right to putting a tower
can
3
waive
feet
your
from
right.
your house, you probably could. So I guess maybe we're spending too much time on this.
Well, you are still using that language, though, in the structures capable of habitation of non-participants in that subsection B. So you are using still that same.
But really, the other setback overrides this one, so I don't think you're gonna run in, or is this one bigger than that one?
Yeah, Commissioner Dressler, if you've got that language that was struck through or whatever, I believe I had proposed a definition of habitable.
But Attorney Engelstad struck your language out.
Oh, no, it wasn't. This was a separate thing. This was the one that had the comments. It had
So it was
the comments in the
2B?
side. It had the comments in the side. It was the track changes,
Oh,
which unfortunately I don't have on me today.
here,
Oh,
let me-
there we go. Commissioner Walla has a copy.
you want us
Walk over there.
At the top.
That talks about day-to-day use, but we can change that.
Oh,
Okay, what,
Yeah,
yeah,
it is greater than the other one, so it does affect non-participating as well.
yeah, I had suggested one thing, which was any building or structure used or intended for use on a day-to-day basis, which could be changed to day-to-day or seasonal basis by people for residential purposes, or for purposes of conducting a commercial or industrial business, or for purposes of a similar nature.
Okay. What do you guys think about that? Public. As long as it's also seasonal.
Participating. If you're
Well, it's-
non-participating, I think that's, you know, it needs to be, if it's livable, that's good enough. And that's kind of like what Lynn Bowie, the attorney last time said.
Right, you don't necessarily have to be living there,
No, you don't have to be living there.
Just-
You
it
can
has-
use it as a hunting cabin. You can
has
come
to
there
be
once a year if you'd like.
possibly lived in, yeah.
Yeah, just possibly living in it. And that case was one over
Capable of
that.
habitation, definitely.
You did, Steve, in your definition, you did say seasonal in there, correct?
Well, you could change it to that. The thing I originally had on a day-to-day basis, but you could make it on a day-to-day basis or seasonal.
Yeah, or, yeah.
I think it just needs to say habitable.
Second,
Dustin Stuber.
just a second here, you'll have to have it.
Paying taxes on this property is habitable.
Yeah, that's a good point.
My limited research on habitable was that there was a few cases that the Supreme Court actually said that habitable is clear, it's self-defined, doesn't need to be defined. It speaks for itself, so I don't think you need to get into defining it in my view, so.
Okay, thank you. Do you have something, Sharon?
If you're paying property taxes on a site, that's habitable property. Otherwise, you wouldn't be paying taxes on it, right?
So is every hunting shack and all those kinds of things under taxation or supposed to be, or what's the rule on that? Yeah,
You're
I'm
asking
just
the wrong
curious. Do we-
person.
if-
Plus, if it's on a piece of property where you've got a full-time farmer on there, they're
don't
not
have
paying
to
taxes
pay
on it
taxes
either.
on it. Yeah, that's true. So we
But, you
probably
know,
don't.
I
It's a good
kind of like what
point,
Mr.
but-
Stuber said, which is, you know, it kind of speaks for itself.
I also like that too.
I think we should go with that.
If everyone's okay with not defining it, we'll just not define it.
Not much more to add. Dale Berwick. I think you should just leave it as habitable.
Yeah.
No dollar amount, no size, anything like that. I've been in 8x10 shacks that were used for hunting, you know. Habitable, we slept in them, sometimes pheasant, then deer, whatever. So it was habitable. The rain didn't get on you. So I would just leave it at that. If you can stay in it, it's habitable. It doesn't need water, doesn't need sewer, doesn't need power. One man's castle or one man's shed is another man's castle, so
Okay,
leave it at that.
thank you.
Thanks. Any other public comment?
Good afternoon, Rick Leach. In regards to page number 7, item C, when we were talking about property line setbacks being within a mile of any property line, and there was a lot of discussion about every quarter line being a property line, why wouldn't something to the effect of 1 mile of any property line which delineates an ownership change? Therefore, if a landowner owns 3 square miles, he can put a facility anywhere in there as long as it's not within 1 mile of an ownership change.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you get that, Denise?
Yeah, do you guys want me to add that? The only
Ma'am.
time I don't like it is when the landowners themselves end up using their own property as a whole piece rather than each piece by piece when they're dealing with wind companies. Like I said, they might not put their whole farm into it. They might want to just do 2 quarters at a time. I don't know. Does that make sense to evaluate each quarter? I mean, he was saying that as you get closer to a town, it becomes smaller and smaller. And yes, that's true because the parcels keep getting smaller, but as you get closer to a town, do you really want to crowd your towns with, you do want all those people to have a say because it's probably not the right place for something like that because it's in the middle of a congested area. So yeah, naturally you're going to have less inclination to go close to a town because of those things. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It's just that you have we have a dense population. It's going to be that way no matter what we say.
Do you have something to say?
Go ahead, sorry.
Okay. Tom Ely, did we want to look at, on page 1, under wind turbine, measuring less than 50 feet in height? Given Mr. Schock, I believe he pronounced it, from the PSC's definition, he's indicating 50 megawatts is still a considerable sized farm. And the way I take it is you can have a 50-foot tower, but they're still putting out 50 megawatts. Or am I reading that wrong? We're saying height, maybe we should need to go back to megawatts. It used to be 100, we struck that out. And now he's saying a 50 megawatt is still a considerable. Technically, it could be a farm. So if we want to separate one turbine from the rest of this, do we want to go down to, I have no idea, 25 megawatts? I don't know if there is such a thing. Or is the 50 fine? Because to me, he's saying 50 megawatts, you could have a 50-foot height wind tower, is the way I read his comment.
What paragraph does it define it in? 619.1.
Yeah, 2.3 definitions, wind turbine.
Oh, in our definitions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Measuring less than will be regulated as a utility. And then on page 1 of Mr. Shook, paragraph 2, he talks about.
Yeah. We took the size out mostly because we're not electricians and we didn't know.
Right,
Exactly
I
how
agree
big-
with you.
yeah.
And I don't know what he's referring to in
But
his.
I don't know either whether or not we should, like, I don't have any background to say whether or not I know that there's any smaller units out there. We just assumed any commercial size company wouldn't mess with anything over 50 or under 50 feet these days.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't know that that's an issue or not. And if they do, yeah, they have to sell it to the grid because you have to put it somewhere. So no matter what they do, they have to sell it to the grid if they have it operating. And so at that point, they become regulated by the PSC.
Yeah, maybe you just want to take that sentence out. Just regulate them all, whether you want one under 50 feet or 2 under 50 feet or 3.
So that last whole sentence.
Well, it's just a thought.
Yep.
And I'm basing that on the PSC's comments, if I'm reading it right.
Well, we left it in to potentially accommodate any farms that might have some kind of units. Of course, we didn't really know if there was such a thing out there. We were
But-
just trying to generally leave some concessions,
But if,
so I don't know.
What
Yep.
did the Abbey? How big
See,
were
those were 90 feet, I think, somewhere in there, right?
I don't.
They took them down now, but I think they were under
Do you
100.
recall what they produced?
But they sold their extra to
Oh,
the
they
grid.
did too?
Yeah, that you have to put that energy somewhere. If you're not using every ounce of it, it has to go somewhere or you will start a fire. So so almost all of them, if they're decent size, they have to go to the grid. In which case the utility is gonna control what you do and the PSC is gonna get involved. So That's why I'm like, what, I don't know what there is out there for farm level besides, real old fashioned type things that they don't work the same way. I don't think they convert energy the same way, some of those, but they must be real small, those ones. Do you know of anything? Cause I just don't, but I think we are safe at 50 feet. I think we're okay. I don't know.
Well, okay.
But yeah, otherwise we can go smaller, I guess. But.
Dean Berwick again. Yeah, if you're talking megawatts, I mean, in a 50, I mean, there's no way that a 50-footer is gonna ever do that. I mean, we're talking 2.3 megawatts with the 450 footers, 2.3.
Right.
So I don't know where this 50 megawatt came from. I
Unless
mean, that
he's-
would be a monster that we haven't even seen before.
Yeah, unless he's thinking
So-
kilowatts. I don't know.
I think just
Yeah.
the 50 foot is good enough.
Yeah, stay away from nameplates.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
I think, I agree with that.
Any other comment from the public? Any other comment from the public? Okay, I'm gonna close the public hearing then. We have all our changes implemented in there.
I think so.
What is your wishes then? You want to come back with a changed one or then new one, or what do we want to do?
I can print it too, and you can, if you want to read it.
Mr. Chairman, I think we're aware of the changes we just got done making here. I presume we could take it to a vote, can't we? To whether to approve or disapprove of it.
It's up to this board if you want, what your decision, what do you want to do? If you want to come back with a new draft, or we want to move forward with it, it's up to you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for
Yes.
Steve. Didn't you have some stuff that you wanted to work on, some language as we were talking?
Well, I think we did that. I mean, we just pretty much,
You better turn your mic on.
You can direct staff to go ahead and make, list out those changes and direct staff to make those, to whatever you want to do. If you want to come back to another meeting with it, or if you want to make a recommendation to the county commission at this point with these changes, it's whatever you decide, whatever you decide to do.
I think that we were,
The question is, can we get those changes ready in time for the next county commission meeting? Or do we go to the one after that? Because I would hate to rush something through, but it sounds like at this point, if you want to make a recommendation based on your proposed changes, I think there's enough here that you certainly could do that.
Yeah,
Ms.
and I would-
Dressler, would you be able to have it printed up? The changes printed up by the Tuesday meeting?
Oh, yeah, I can give them to you right now.
I would concur, because I think the public's put a lot of input into this, and they're probably getting tired of meeting after meeting after meeting. Let's take it to a vote, and
I
then let's
make a
let the
mo-
commission take it from there.
I make a motion that with the approved changes today, everything that we got from Ms. Ingolstead, everybody seems like they were in agreement that we pass the proposed wind energy facility and wind turbine text amendments draft.
I'll second that.
You may want to, in your motion, list out which portions you want to, or specifically, well, you've got the list, Commissioner Dressler, don't you?
With all the changes that we have made today, that Ms. Dressler will make that will make the changes for the meeting on Tuesday.
I second it.
Okay.
Okay. Motion is second. Have any other discussion?
I do have one question on, it starts on page 7 and goes into page 8 about each wind turbine shall be set back at least 1 mile from certain roads. And what was our purpose in setting those back from specific roads that far?
When the Dickinson Wind Farm, the project that came up was, the project that came up that the board did not approve. One of the things that came up was along those roadways are, number one, they're close to centers of population. Many of those roads, that's what the cities were on, and people were concerned about them being close to the gateway into the county. And then also, one of the roadways, the Enchanted Highway, there's tall structures are supposed to be set back, from that also. So that's why those setbacks were being proposed. It was in response to comments that we actually got from commissioners from county commissioners during the hearing on that Dickinson Wind Farm. That was the one that was denied.
And if you remember, Suzie, last time, it was Steve that had made these maybe a couple years ago already, and you had them in your, you had recommended them to us last time, and we had entered them last time already, so those particular ones aren't new. But, yeah.
And there were some concerns like with Old Highway 10, well, that's the old red trail, which is supposed to be, it's, like the Enchanted Highway, there's some visual aspects of that. So that was an aesthetic thing. And as I said, also Old Highway 10 into Stark County, there was talk about that being the gateway into the community and not wanting to have high structures within a mile of the gateways in.
Any other discussion? I guess I'd like to see the final draft of this before I vote on it, but I guess if you guys want to go ahead with a vote, we will.
I'm kind of along with you. I'd like to see in the writing before
Well,
I don't
There- I
disagree
need to-
with any of the
Well, there was a
thoughts.
second and a motion, so we need to kind of call for the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you guys do have the option in the commission to make any changes you feel at that time as well.
Any other discussion?
So I have one technical question. So does it just get approved once by the P and Z and then it has 2 readings at the county level?
One
It's just 1 reading at county, okay.
here and one there. Any other questions or discussion? Roll call vote. Commissioner Arthod,
Aye.
Commissioner Richard,
Aye.
Mr. Dressler,
Aye.
Commissioner Freilich,
Aye.
Commissioner Sobeluk,
No,
Commissioner Walla,
Aye.
Commissioner Kuntz,
Aye.
chair votes no. Motion carries. Okay, and the other items of anything else or?
Just a reminder that the next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting will be held on April the 21st. And we've received some applications. We have 2 rezoning applications, a conditional use permit, the one that the Johnsons had talked about, and then also preliminary plat. So just to let you know that, just a reminder that meeting will be held on the 21st of April. And also that the county commission meeting that those will go to has been changed to May the 5th.
Okay. Now to look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a second?
second?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay.
Coming up April 21st.
I usually check the agenda on these about 5 minutes before I walk downstairs. I think so. Been off antibiotics
Already
for 2
sent them
months
to you.
now. and-
Yeah.
Right, so I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
So you obviously will listen to the recording as well, but I think I got them all, as everyone kind of defined it, but again, the commission can pick them up part if they want to.
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh.
I'm sure they will. Yeah.
I'm not sure what it was in the
Which
light
is
where
what
my,
they,
like,
definitely my eyes dry. I mean.
I feel like I'm in just fighting dehydration for.
I struggle with that.
I can start working on those.
I have started weaning. When I was really sick, I was drinking any caffeine,
Yeah, no.
or coffee, but I was drinking all these nasty meds, and so I was drinking more like 7 Up or things that would kind of mask the taste. And now I gotta